Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Best You podcast. My name is Nick Carrier, body optimization coach and creator of the 10-Week Transformation. The mission of this show is to help you get closer to your best you in all areas of life every single day. In today's episode, we have Dr. Josh Renkens. Dr. Josh is a functional medicine chiropractor who specializes in helping high performers eliminate chronic pain, optimize their movement patterns, and transform their long-term health. However, in today's episode, we're going to discuss something a little bit different. We're going to discuss his upcoming Hyrox World Championships competition. During this episode, he's going to give you a masterclass on elite performance. We're going to talk about how he's attacking this high-level competition, this world-class competition, when it comes to training, nutrition, and mental prep. For now, it's time to get closer to your best you. Let's dive in. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Dr. Josh Renkens. I actually was introduced to Dr. Renkens almost as like one of the first people that I met in the fitness industry here in Nashville, and that was about 8 years ago now, and somewhat stayed in touch ever since, and have gone to see him over since my hip started bothering me leading into the marathon. Anyways, we have a lot in common, and I'm super excited to dive into a lot of things, but Dr. Renkens is getting ready to compete in the Hyrox World Championships. And if you've never heard of Hyrox before, we're going to dive into a little bit what it actually is. But you can also look it up. But it's basically this new this newish competition that's been around for how many years? 6, 7, 8 years?
I think 5.
5 is when they've done the World Championships. Okay. So 5 years they've had World Championships where everybody comes around the entire globe in one place, and only the top how many compete?
In my age group, I think there's going to be around 30.
Okay, so it's per age group. 30, and this is the, I guess I saw, second time over the course of the 5-year period when it's happened in the United States, and just happened to time up pretty well that it's in Chicago next week at the time of this recording. You guys will hear it afterwards. So anyways, we'll see how he ends up faring. But basically, the Hyrox World Championships, I'm going to start kind of like breaking down the competition just so people have a frame of reference and context around what it is. So basically, there's kind of like 8 rounds of a 1 kilometer run, which is 0.62 miles. And in between each of those, there's 8 different exercises. There's ski erg for 1,000 meters. There's a sled push. There's a sled pull. There's burpee broad jumps. There's rowing for 1,000 meters. There's farmer's carries, sandbag lunges, and wall balls. And it's such a unbelievable balance of cardiorespiratory fitness, of pure strength, of like endurance strength, both upper body and lower body. And you're legit one of the best in the world for it. So I'm going to kind of start off asking you, how do you think about your goal going in? Do you think about, I want to come in first? Do you think about, I want to finish a particular time and that's the time because that's going to be my personal best, or because that's the time that I think might have the chance to win? How do you think about your goal going into this?
So starting the season, first of all, this is my first year doing it.
Oh, wow.
So my goal last year, the Hyrox season kind of runs from June to June, basically. And when I was introduced to it by a friend of mine up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Rob, I was like, all right, my goal is to qualify for Worlds. That was my goal. Mm-hmm. And my understanding was that in order to do so, you had to qualify. You had to win an event. Okay. The way Hyrox is broken down is you have what's called an Elite 15 men and an Elite 15 women. Those, like, I could qualify for the Elite 15, which is the best in the world. Yeah. But it's not that realistic, just based, I'm 52 years of age. A lot of these Elite 15 guys are somewhere between 25 and 30 probably, right? So what they do is they break it down into age group categories. So I compete in the 50 to 54 age group category. And so as I said, my goal over the course of the year was to win an event. And I did win. I won an event in Houston earlier this year, which qualified me for Worlds. So going into this event, my mindset, I'm going in to win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course I want to win, but I'm also It's as an athlete, I think it's important to give yourself a little bit of grace and just understand that, hey, you made it this far and just go have a great time.
Yeah.
Really, that's my number one, I would say, agenda for the weekend is to just enjoy the experience. I can honestly say that, and just give it my all.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going in to try to win.
Yeah.
There's some guys that I know on the start list that are fast, and they're going to kind of be my target. Some guys from overseas. So,
no, I love it. And to give everybody an idea, and me a little bit more of an idea of kind of qualifications and kind of, you're going to be humble, but like how elite you really are in this. How many different events are there leading up to qualification for the World Championships, and about how many people are competing? And we'll talk about your age group, about how many people are competing kind of in your age group at these events on average.
Yeah. I think this past year, Hyrox, I think there were about 30 events. I don't know the exact number, but I think it was around 30. And from what I know, 8 or 9 of those were in the United States. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of them were, as you said, kind of in the intro. I mean, this thing was born in Germany, and then it's sort of migrated now to the States, and it's become more and more popular in the last 2 years. I would say here. The numbers are, you show up an event and these qualifiers, like when I was in Houston, there were over 9,000 people competing. Now there's 2 divisions, and there's all these age groups. So you have an open division and a pro division. In order to qualify for Worlds, you have to compete in the pro division.
Okay.
It is, you can sort of self-proclaim yourself as a pro. Yeah. You kind of enter the pro.
There's no like thing that you have to submit that is proves that you're at pro division level.
That's right.
Okay.
But the difference is with the open division, everything is a little bit lighter.
Right.
The ones that require the load, like you mentioned, the sandbag, the wall balls, the farmer carry, the sleds, push and pull. Those are all a bit lighter in the open division as opposed to the pro division.
Yeah. So you don't want to just say that you're a pro just to like act like you're macho or whatever. Like you're gonna have to deal with it and actually handle it.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. If there's about 30 people in your age group, there's going to be about 30 events that take place because you have to be able to win an event to qualify. And so one of the things I'm really excited to get into today is basically like how he's been training and leading up to the actual event, how he's been eating and leading up to the event. And it's funny, we are recording this at 9 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, and he's talking about how next weekend he's racing at about 11:40, and he wants to do a workout that's probably somewhat similar, maybe a little bit lighter today, at the same time. And that's just one high level insight into somebody who's a high performer, is to try to replicate as much as possible in practice what you're going to be doing in actual competition. But give me a little bit of an insight as to what your weekly training routine has looked like from a strength perspective and from a cardiorespiratory fitness perspective. How are you breaking it up over these past, and you can start off that question by telling us how long you've been focusing specifically for training for this competition.
Yeah. So specifically for Hyrox, like I said, about a year.
Okay.
But I've gone through phases, as you know, as a coach. I mean, you take your athletes kind of through some phases where you've got a ramp up, a build up, and then a deload of some kind, and then probably building up your base again. So for this competition for Worlds, I came off of Houston in March, and I took, I would say I took about 2 weeks. It took me about 4 or 5 days for my nervous system to kind of calm down and recover. And then I just eased back in for the following 2 weeks. And then I started kind of ramping up, just continuing to build my base, but then sprinkling in some intensity.
Yeah.
And then I would say about 8 weeks ago, then I kind of really started ramping up the intensity.
Okay.
The intensity, the volume, frequency too, at my age, kind of getting deeper into the weeds on your question, I find it much more challenging to recover. All aspects. I think if you ask any sort of Hyrox athlete, it's like, okay, how do you balance this stuff between, especially if you have to work. I don't have the luxury of being a professional athlete where it kind of supports me. So I'm working full days, 5 days a week, and trying to fit this in. And then, like I said, you kind of add the age factor where, for those of you listeners who are still young, it does get more challenging to recover. So, but I do all I can. Lots of things out there that I think I take advantage of that do help me recover day to day, week to week.
So at your age of 52, in order to try to find the balance of, I'm going to want to go as hard as I can to make sure I'm set up for success, but I also want to make sure I can recover so that I can go as hard as I can. Like, actually, what does that practically look like? How many days a week are you training? What are the hours of it?
Yep.
Has it been split up strategically where it's like just strength based, just cardio based, and then you split it some days? Like, talk to us about what that looks like.
I'll train usually 5 or 6 days a week.
Okay.
And what I found, it's sort of, some of it's just intuitive, especially because it is kind of new, to me, like the specialization of Hyrox. What I've come to find is I get more specific over, like I said, kind of about 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, started to get more specific. Each workout sort of incorporated some of the different zones.
Yep.
Running, compromised running, all that stuff amps up a little bit. Versus,
and when he says compromised running, it means running in after you've already done something and you're fatigued.
Yeah, exactly. Like coming off the burpee broad jump and try to run. When your heart rate is high and you're trying to control it, etc. I think I still enjoy doing all these other things though. Mm-hmm. So, and I found too that when I train for Hyrox, you got to be really careful about trying to do too much, but then too much of like one thing.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me as an athlete to, ski or row 1,000 meters at a time every workout.
Yeah.
So I find myself doing shorter intervals, trying to some overspeed stuff for sure. I'm not going to necessarily burpee broad jump 80 meters at a time every time I go into the gym.
Right.
Now I might do burpee broad jump, once or twice a week, but and I might do more than 80 meters cumulatively.
Right.
But it would probably be like 20 to 40 meters at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I do that for like 4 rounds, coupled with another exercise such as maybe row, because they're next to each other, or sprinkle in a run, of some kind, like a half-mile run or something like that.
I'm interested in like thinking about this idea almost like philosophically or from a bigger perspective. So, for example, to dissect it a little bit further, you don't always do the exact thing that you're going to do in competition when you're practicing. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I want to talk about why it might not make sense. Because if you're trying to run a faster mile, when you're training for it, you're not just going to run 1 mile as fast as you can 3 times a week. That's not going to be the optimal way to get better. That might be a way where you're going to get a little bit better, but is it going to be optimal? No. And same thing with football practice. If you're not going to go to football practice and have a full 4-quarter game because that's, it will get you better, but is it optimal? No.
Right.
Why do you feel like, and you just apply it to the Hyrox, why do you feel like not doing the exact thing that you will be competing in is the most optimal way to do it? Is it because like physiologically you will actually have better benefits if you don't do it the exact way? Is it mentally, if you do it the exact way it's more draining? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. I think physiologically you brought something up that's good. It's you want to continually to kind of give your body some different stimulus, and then you're always teetering. There's so much physical stress that goes into the training, especially when you couple it with all the demands of the rest of our lives. And if you were to do the Hyrox, simulate it. Now there's a time and a place for a sim. Like I did a sim a couple weeks ago, and in fact, 2 weeks ago I did basically an overspeed sim of the second half of the race. So there's a time and a place to do stuff like that, but you're always kind of teetering on. You want to be careful about doing too much. And then the biggest thing, like I said, is just kind of giving your body some different types of stimulus. and also by cutting it down into, like I used the example of the burpees earlier, you can actually teach your body to go faster, right? So if you don't do the full distance, whether it's 80-meter burpee broad jump and I do 25-meter intervals, or whether it is a take the 1,000-meter ski and I break it down into 300 meters or 400-meter repeats, what have you. It allows you to work, certainly allows you to work closer and sometimes even exceed your threshold.
Right.
Which just continues to kind of build your overall engine, I think.
Yeah.
So.
100%. And I did a 1 mile run goal a number of years back, and I keep thinking about it through the lens of that. When you are training for it, you're doing so many 400s or 600s and 200s, and I didn't do very many. Once it got to 1,200, I wasn't doing too much longer than that at one stretch of, or repeats of that. And it's exactly what you just said. You're trying to train your body to be able to go faster than you would be able to do if you're going a longer bout of effort.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nutrition. Let's start going into a little bit nutrition. How have you, from a high level, have you thought about your nutritional strategy over these past 8 weeks in particular, when you've really been going at it a little bit harder? Are you somebody who tracks calories or tracks macros, or do you just kind of know from being focused on your nutrition for so long about how much you want it, how much you should have and when you should have it? How do you go about your nutritional strategy?
Yeah. I mean, you said it right on. I mean, I feel like I've been cognizant and dialed into my nutrition for so long that I have a pretty good idea of what I'm consuming and how much. Do I know the exact amounts? I don't, because I'm not somebody that measures macros. But I'm definitely, what I've come to find too is the timing aspect. And of course, this, Nick, as a coach and with all your expertise too. But, there are days where, say on a day off, I'm not going to necessarily consume as much carbohydrate. I'm going to kind of focus on good protein to help my body repair and recover, incorporate really healthy fats. Whereas on a day where I'm training, especially on a day where I'm training heavy, I will consume more carbohydrates. A lot of timing goes into it. Prior to a session, I'm consuming more sort of fast burning carbohydrates. Some of that is in a liquid form, really, just because I know my body's going to use it right away, and it's going to use it more effectively. It's easier on the GI system, etc. You mentioned earlier in the interview, like today, it's kind of a big day for me because I'm still, like I said, I'm still tinkering with the whole race day thing. And going into this World Championships, I've got, they released the start time, so I've got the advantage of knowing when I'm going to race. So when I went to bed last night, I kind of treated the evening last night as what it's going to feel like next Friday when I'm up in Chicago. So I got a meal that was, it included protein. It was some chicken. I digest chicken well. It's familiar with my body. Consumed, some good starchy carbohydrate in the form of some rice. I even had some sweet potato. And I chose what I ate, and same thing with this morning, just because I know that not only are they foods I'm familiar with and that work well for me, but I'm going to be able to replicate it next weekend. So this morning, my number one fan, my wife Amy, boiled some eggs for me last night. So I had a couple hard-boiled eggs with a big, kind of mound of rice, and I had another little kind of protein supplement, just about 18 grams of protein, I think that was, coupled with the 3 eggs. And then I've already downed one drink, just carb mix, and then I'll probably have another one on my way to on the way to the gym this morning. And then I'm going to arrive at the gym this morning the same time I plan to arrive at the event center next weekend. Go through my warm up. It's pretty regimented, arduous. I mean, I'm sweating. Some people might look at me like, what are you doing? You're going to be tired by the time the event starts. That's just what works for me. And then I'll consume a little bit more right before, 20 minutes before the gun goes off, and then I'll be ready to roll. So, but nutrition, it's huge. I mean,
huge.
as you know, with the recovery thing, not only from a performance standpoint, but just like you said, recovery from day to day, you need the right kind of foods. And I've always put a lot of stock into it. I mean, it's been an important part of my life for as long as I can remember, really, even being a college athlete,
right,
which for me was, so many years ago, 30, 35 years ago. But that's when I was first turned on to nutrition, really, believe it or not. I figured it out in college. I was like, whoa, I feel better.
A lot of people 35 years ago, nobody talked about it.
Nobody was talking about it.
I'm 30 years old, so I don't really know. But
you're right, Nick.
What people, some stories and everybody has said that.
You're absolutely right. No, it was not a thing. There certainly wasn't the supplements and
of course,
all the aids and stuff that people are have available today. But there wasn't anybody talking about it. So I think I was lucky in the sense of, I actually had a roommate in college that I played basketball with, and his grandmother kind of taught him a little bit about nutrition. And then talking to him, I was like, man, he's on to something. And I quickly noticed. So ever since then, it's been a huge part. And I've varied over the years, kind of like what my what I eat and what I don't eat and things like that. It's constantly, we evolve as humans. That's what makes us special.
Hell yeah to that grandmother. A couple of things I want to touch on from the nutrition side of things. So I think one of the things that everybody needs to remember when they're listening to this is how a high level athlete is looking to further optimize what he's doing. I think food timing is super important when it comes to things like this. When it comes to just your everyday person who's doing an average workout, food timing can help you a little bit, but it's not going to make or break everything. And so food timing being critically important for this type of competition. And give everybody how long, or what is the time that you're trying to shoot for with your completion time for this, so people understand how kind of grueling and long this actually is.
Yeah, I would love to go 65 minutes.
Okay.
I think I'm capable of going 65. In Houston, I went 68. There's some things I've been working on. I know where I struggled in Houston was the sled pull and the burpee broad jump.
Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff, I'm confident that I'm doing well, and I can do that again. I can replicate it. But
when
those sleds are heavy.
When you say you struggled in those two events, are you saying you struggled from the sense of like, that was when you were most fatigued, or compared to other people's timing and ability and those things, you feel like you are less than those people? Or what do you mean when you say you struggled in those?
I would say more compared to other times.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So like in order to go from 68 to 65, you see other people who are maybe doing fast times, and you see that their sled pull is happening at this.
Yeah.
Do you get clocked for each event, or you just
They do. They have chip timing.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
Basically everything is with that technology, you can see exactly each run split. You can see how much time you spent in the zone, and then they also have what's called a rock zone, which is sort of that time between running and getting to the zone.
Right.
And those vary, but the sled pull felt, it just felt really heavy to me in Houston. I remember.
I mean, it's 227 pounds, 120 kilograms.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And it's for the pro, it might even be, I don't know if that's what it is or if it's more than that. But
I don't know if I have the pro number or not. But anyways,
yeah,
it's heavy.
I remember in Houston coming in, and I wasn't, you asked me if I was tired or fatigued at that point in the race. It wasn't so much that, because that's the third zone. I think if you're tired at that point, you're probably in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
But I remember squatting down, grabbing the rope, and giving it a tug, and I think the sled moved an inch, and I was like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. Okay, so let's stay on this then. So the sled pull felt heavy. So like, again, not in the grand scheme of people, but in the scheme of this event, you felt like you were weaker. And that, so like, what are some of the exercises that you've been doing to strengthen the sled pull?
Yeah, I mean, really stuff that emphasizes, you know, kind of lat, rhomboid, posterior chain. I've been doing some specific sled pull. In fact, I did it last night. And
I mean, is
pull
it like,
downs?
Yeah, pull downs. Are you like pull ups, rows, like different kinds of rows?
Single arm dumbbell rows.
Yeah.
A lot of like prone barbell row, landmine row. Yeah. Things like that.
Probably a good mix of unilateral and bilateral movements.
Exactly.
Single arm, double arm.
Yep. For sure.
Nice.
With the Hyrox, with the load being the load it is, and me being sort of the size I am, you don't really see many. I don't know if you see any competitors on the men's side doing like a hand over hand technique. It's more like you grab the rope and you pull it
with both arms.
With both arms.
Oh, and then you grab both arms.
And then So then my technique is I squat. I give it a good pull. And then you're actually allowed to step back a yard. Now you can't step on the line behind you, otherwise it's a time deduction. So I usually take 2 or 3 kind of mini steps after that initial pull. So obviously, you know, so then you're getting, the sled's moving when you're stepping back too.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of lay the rope down to my side, which is, you know, by far and away the technique that people that are trying to really excel are doing.
And
there is an art
it basically
to it.
Because, I mean, the thing is so damn heavy that one arm is just not going to do it most of the time.
Yeah, it's just too heavy.
Okay.
I mean, I think for most, there might be some guys out there that can do that, but
it's not going to be the most efficient way to try to get that thing.
Yeah.
Something came up in when you were saying, you know, you don't want to step on the line when you pull back.
Yeah.
And for all of these, I know just in our previous conversations, like with the burpee to broad jump, you do a burpee, you jump forward, and then you can't really step forward after that. You kind of have to land and go right back down into the burpee. So there's something there. And then with lunges, you got to make sure your knee basically gets all the way to the floor. Yeah. With wall balls, you probably have to squat to a certain depth. With some of the other ones, there might not be as fine-tuned rules. Maybe there are that I'm not sure of. Like you got to get to exactly 1,000 meters for rowing and ski erg. But talk to me about, you're doing these sandbag lunges second to last.
Yeah.
You got to get your knee all the way down, or else there's a time deduction, or they add time to your overall time. How do you think about the ability to stay focused while you're fatigued? Because that's so difficult in a sporting competition. It's so difficult in a workday. At the end of the workday, when you're fatigued, it's like hard to stay focused and really perform at a high level. How do you think about your ability to focus under fatigue, and how have you been kind of like working on that during your training?
Yeah. I mean, you just said it for me. Just to reiterate, it's really practice, like practicing under fatigued conditions. I think, you know, anyone from, you know, Navy SEALs to a high level corporate, you name it, and it just kind of falls into this category too, is the more you do it, the more you can kind of train your brain to just know, hey, this is temporary. I'm going to get through this. You know, as much as you may feel like things are going to go really sour, you know, the odds are you're going to survive. Yeah. Certainly. But you're right. It does take extra concentration under fatigue conditions. And I think it's, you know, I don't really think ahead in the race. I will say that. So I think
you you just stay in the present moment with the exercise that you're currently on.
Yep. And I think again, that's probably a skill that people need to practice and acquire too. It's, you know, you're always sort of a project, right? You're always evolving, like we said earlier. And I think that's something that I've been good at for most of my life, is trying to, I've been able to, you know, just life happens, right? We all go through stuff. And I think one thing that I've been able to do outside of having a wonderful support group is sort of categorizing things, or I'm trying to think of the word that people use sometimes,
No,
but putting myself in a place.
Compartmentalizing.
I think I'm good at that. So
how do you? A lot of people are like, man, I wish I was good at that. How do you feel like, or why do you feel like you've gotten good at that? And you say your support group was big.
Yeah, support group, but also I don't know. I think it happened at a fairly young age, just going through some different stuff, some hardships a little bit, and some setbacks at various points in my life. Really, it just required it. It really was what had to be done, because you just got to find a way. I know it's hard, and people go through all kinds of stuff that I can't even imagine, probably.
Yeah. So you're kind of saying when there's a setback or some life happens event.
Yes.
Instead of just trying to focus and instead of just dwelling on that and focusing on that, you're pretty good at being like, okay, that's there. There's a time and place where I need to worry about that and focus on that. But like, this is the task at hand. I got to dial into this.
Yes.
Do you feel like, I think for me, anytime I feel like I'm doing a good job of that, it's because I'm so in tuned to the effectiveness or the quality of work that I'm doing with that thing that I'm doing.
Yes.
That I don't have the bandwidth to be able to think about other things.
Yeah.
And so from Hyrox perspective, is it kind of like I'm just so focused on controlling my breathing during this particular exercise, or I'm so focused on having the right form with the sled pull, or I'm so focused on, you name it. Is it just like a matter of focusing on this thing, and because I'm focusing on this thing, I don't even think about these other things?
Yeah, really. I mean, during the event itself, it is. And too, kind of touching on the broader subject here, as two fitness guys, a lot of times fitness plays that role for us.
For sure.
As far as like when you're going through one of those things that happen in life, just events that we all are subjected to at various times, because nobody's going to escape that stuff.
For sure.
You can lean on something like this actually too to help you get through those periods. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 100% that guy.
Yeah.
Like fitness and training has always been sort of, one might call it an escape, one might call it a coping strategy. Whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
It's definitely been a great thing for me and allowed me to kind of focus and then just move on and go to the next thing. So
I think that's a good way to think about it, because I think people can use it to an extent in a bad way, where it's like they avoid what they need to handle to go do something that they can control.
Yeah.
And so there's, in a sense, it could be bad, but it can be a huge outlet for people. And when you're doing a hard workout, that's going to require all your focus. You can't be focusing on something else.
Yes.
And so,
yeah.
No, I love it. I love it. Let's to dive into. Let's see. Let's go into the fact that you said you're 52. It's harder to recover nowadays, but at the same time, you want to practice pushing yourself when you're really tired, so that you can practice focusing while you're fatigued, and you want to get the most out of your training. I think you kind of mentioned before how a lot of your training has been intuitive, just trying to get a sense of when is the time to really go hard, mm-hmm. and when do I actually need to recover.
Yeah.
I know for me that's difficult when you're somebody who wants to push yourself as hard as you can, and you grew up think the harder you work, the better things are going to be. Sometimes I can struggle to be like, is my default that, or am I, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, I need a rest day, or am I just kind of making an excuse that I need a rest day? Should I actually really go train? Or am I saying I need to train just based off of my personality that really wants to work hard, and I really need to take a rest day? How do you kind of wrestle with the duality of you got to go hard, you got to push yourself, but no, I'm 52 and I need to make sure that I'm recovering well enough?
Yeah. It is, I do lean on my intuition quite a bit, just sort of instinctively. There are days where I've got something planned, and I'm just like, all right, today I don't think is the day. So it's not like I'll completely abandon training.
Yeah.
I don't really do that, but
you just change what the intensity might look like.
I'll change what the intensity might look like. And then there are days where, you know, you're planning on a recovery day and you feel dynamite, and the temptation is to really go for it. And I kind of, again, go by gut. You know, there's some days where I might add a little spice to it, but I usually kind of listen, you know, just to kind of what my body's saying. That's the thing too, like going into next season, not that I'm looking ahead, but I want to take care of business next weekend, but I don't really rely on any technology. You know, old school, whatever you want to call it.
You mean like wearables? You're not really.
Not really.
Yeah.
Like if I go to the track and do an interval workout, I'm interested in my splits, so I'll wear a watch. But it's more for timing purposes.
Rather than like heart rate and how quickly it might come down or anything like that.
But I do understand the merit and the validity of heart rate training, and you know, staying below a certain heart rate, things like that. If there's any time where I do pay attention to my heart rate, again, it's not really, it's not through necessarily a wearable, but I'll like take my pulse or whatever, you know, things like that.
No, it's funny that you say that, because I do feel like wearables can be unbelievable tools. Like I obviously have a wearable, but I know, for example, like last night I felt like I had a pretty good night's sleep, and I wake up and it's like saying I didn't have as good of a sleep. So I'm like, son of a gun. And then you can convince yourself later that day, like, oh, I'm tired because I didn't get a good sleep score. Or different things like that where, you know, there might be some accuracy to it, but it could also just be convincing you of something that might not actually be true. And I also think there's some validity to, so like when I ran a half marathon, did my first 2 half marathons, I didn't have a wearable, wasn't tracking myself. And I feel like if I was, and I maybe saw the pace that I came out at, or I saw how high my heart rate was, I was like, I could be like, oh man, I'm too high, I need to back it off. When in reality, like I actually pushed through and did just fine and did great. And so I do feel like wearables can kind of convince us of things that might not necessarily be true, or we might not necessarily need to take in.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, you know, kind of going off of what I was saying earlier, it may be something that I try to incorporate a little bit more of next year or next season, because I do plan to compete again next year. But at the end of the day, you know, you sort of got to do a little bit of both. You can pay attention to the data, but then you just got to kind of go by a little bit about what you feel and be smart about it. That comes with experience. That comes with time, you know, training. The more you do something like Hyrox or CrossFit or marathon training, you know, things like that, you're going to get a little bit more savvy in kind of how you approach things. You know, the recovery days is kind of when I pay currently, you know, not using the wearables and things like that. Those are the days where I think, tend to pay more attention to keeping my heart rate low, not exciting my nervous system too much, you know, just letting my body recover, but then getting the advantages of doing something easy, you know, flushing stuff out.
Let's go on. Let's stay on this recovery side of things. Obviously, sleep is probably big. We already mentioned like getting the right nutrition is big, but like I know you and what you do. What are some of the other recovery tactics that you use that you feel like have really been beneficial?
One I just sort of alluded to is incorporating some easy days, not just taking complete days off, but you know, maybe like what was it? Just the other night, I did an easy 10 kilometers, just super simple, you know, like 8-minute pace type stuff, and I felt better after doing it than I did before I did it. You know, so your body just sort of acclimates again, and likes some easy kind of, you know, nudges here and there, right, for recovery. I do I sauna. We've got a sauna. We've got a cold plunge at home.
How often do you usually do that stuff?
I do that. I sauna usually 2 or 3 days a week, and then I find myself plunging 3, maybe 4 days a week. Early on, I would plunge every day, and I almost felt like my body started to become a little bit desensitized to it.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things you usually want to figure out different ways to, you know, challenge yourself more to it.
I do. I do both for sure on days that I don't train.
Okay.
So, you know, if it's a week where I train 5 days a week, 5 days that week, I'm definitely in the sauna, definitely in the plunge on the days off, and then there's usually 2 other days where I'm in there again. I do like the contrast. I think there's some advantages to that. Whether I go sauna and then plunge and be done, or sometimes I might go back and forth a little bit. But you get varying opinions on the research and really what's going on. But I think there's something to be said about just the way it makes each of us feel when we do such things.
Totally.
So I love that. I do supplement with some things, which I think does help with recovery.
What do you usually take?
I know, like you said, you and I have talked about nutrition already, but I supplement with some protein.
Okay.
I supplement
What kind of protein supplements do you use?
I use, I'm one of those people who I like my body to have to adapt.
Yeah.
So I'll actually supplement with a couple different proteins.
Okay.
I supplement. I don't do well with whey.
Okay.
I'm one of those people who my gut just doesn't really do that great with whey protein. So I tend to stay away from that. But I do a vegan protein that I get from Bear Nutrition that I really like. It's easy on my gut. And then I usually alternate that. Again, it's kind of like, okay, I'll look up into our little area where we make coffee and blend our smoothies and stuff, and I'll say, well, what feels right today?
Yeah.
So I'll either do that Bear Nutrition supplement, or there's another one I really like from Equip. One of my colleagues actually introduced me to that fairly recently, and it's a beef protein, but it's super clean.
Wow. Equip, you said?
Equip, yeah.
Is it a powder? Is it a pill? Or
It's a powder.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll mix it in with, and I usually do like a coconut water base with some ice, and then I like to throw the protein, and I'll choose a raw nut butter of some kind. Cashew butter is a good one for me.
You said whey protein doesn't work. Does dairy not work for you, or?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I do grass-fed butter.
Yeah.
Things like that, but I don't really, a fun night for me would include some ice cream.
Yeah.
But that's not all the time,
right.
not even weekly. But that's kind of my indulgence there. So that of course includes some dairy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so there's a couple of protein ones. Anything else that you feel like has been beneficial with your recovery?
I like creatine.
Okay.
And even there, I use different kinds,
Wow.
and not necessarily during the week, but I'll do a cycle.
Yeah.
Say I'll go through a 30 or a 60-day cycle using one creatine, and then I'll do another type of creatine.
How long have you been doing creatine? Long time?
Yeah. I've had periods where I don't use it, and then I'll go back to it.
And do you feel like there is a big difference, or like a meaningful enough difference when you are using it versus when you're not doing it, when you're really trying to perform at high levels?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't necessarily think creatine is going to help me to run faster longer, but
right.
especially on phases of training where I'm really focused on strength.
Yeah.
Where I'm working on heavy overload sled, or I'm working on, the pull, or just even those phases of training where you're doing more of a, kind of hypertrophic emphasis. I think creatine can really play a role. And now, obviously, there's enough research to show that there's no harm. In fact, they're coming out with more and more reasons, it seems like, recently that people should take it.
Yeah. My thing, I've actually have never taken creatine until like a couple of times when I was in high school, just because I thought I should take it. And honestly, like, I don't have anything against it. I'll only hear good things from people and from researchers and stuff like that. It's just a matter of, like, I just haven't spent the money to do it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does seem like for most people, performance, like strength and muscular
power.
endurance, strength and power. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say muscular endurance kind of type exercises that can really benefit. And then more and more people are talking about the benefits to your brain and everything like that too.
Heart health, brain health. I even saw a study fairly recently was talking about women and fertility.
Wow.
Creatine can help.
Huh.
So yeah, they're coming out with all kinds of stuff. And then pre-workout, I like I do like a little bit of beta alanine.
Okay.
I use that. Low dose caffeine, like sometimes it's even just in the form of a gel that contains
Caffeine.
a little bit of caffeine,
Yeah.
maybe 75 to 100 milligrams.
Gotcha.
And then I supplement with fish oil,
Okay.
a probiotic. That's another one that I vary,
Okay.
kind of month to month. I've got 2 or 3 that I really like, and I think it's just important to gut health for people is probably underestimated.
Yeah, for sure.
It just affects there's so much between the gut and the brain axis that if you don't have a healthy gut, it's going to affect everything from performance to cognition to sleep to mood.
How long have you been taking the probiotic?
Oh man, long time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, decade.
Yeah, I was and any other supplements, or is that kind of
that's kind of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, I mean, I think in looking at these, we've got a couple of different protein supplements, the creatine, the pre-workout, fish oil, probiotic. I would assume to say that like almost all of those are probably like what you're doing regardless of the training for Hyrox. Like that's not a Hyrox specific thing.
Right.
Potentially pre-workout might be more Hyrox specific because I want to be able to like perform my best for the workout. I don't know, but so that was great for people who are training for something hard and not training for something hard. I'm interested to know about your running training. So like I said, it's 0.62 miles in between each of these 8 stations, which is total about 4.96 miles across. So let's just round up to a total of 5 miles across the entirety of the race. How do you think about, we'll start off, how do you think about the per 0.62 mile splits? Do you think that all of them are going to be different depending on when I hit them as far as my pace, or am I going to try to have my pace pretty similar regardless of when I hit them? How do you think about the actual execution of each interval first?
Mm-hmm. Ideally, they would all be pretty similar.
Okay. Do you start running and then you do ski erg, or do you start ski erg and then run?
You start running.
Okay.
And
so
then,
right off the bat, you're just kind of like try to.
Yep.
You're not coming out of the gates.
Right.
Barking.
You see people coming out of the gates barking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mad sprint for some people, but the 2 races that I've done, you'll probably see this Saturday, is I will kind of hang back a little bit. I'm not gonna get gapped by any means by the field, but I'm gonna be somewhere kind of in the back half of the pack probably, and just sort of feel it out, let my heart rate, slowly kind of acclimate to the stress. And then I know going in that after that burpee, broad jump, and after the lunges, that's when those are going to be the 2 probably most difficult runs for me.
Yeah, legs feeling the heaviest.
And after the lunges, I mean, that's the last run.
Yeah.
So you get off that 100-meter lunge. Geez. So you're already 55 minutes into the race, 60 minutes into the race for me, and so you're fatigued, but it's also the 8th run. And then you got wall balls after that, and then you don't have to run. You just have to run, make your way across the line. Yeah. So I do know going in that those are going to be my 2 most challenging runs. So trying to focus on not slowing down too much there, that'll be huge.
And so that's just intuitive trying to be at the pace that you want to do. It's not like you're not looking at a watch or looking at a clock or anything per se.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I will not be wearing a watch, and so I'm not really going to know what my pace is, but you can bet I'm going to be trying to run, as fast as I feel like I can run without going over the top.
Right, of course.
Right. So,
so now let's transition into about the equal for each of them, but your 2 toughest ones, and so that on those 2 you have to focus while you're fatigued and not let yourself slow down more than you need to whatever degree that might mean. What does it look like with training? It's a total of 5 miles, so it's still a relatively long distance. Long is just based on your own experience and how you do running. Right. But like, I know you've done marathons really fast in the past and like have a history of running. So how do you think about your running training and splitting up when you're doing running not under fatigue, or what is the word you used? Compromised running. When do you do uncompromised running versus when you do compromised running? How do you kind of balance that?
Yeah. This is a little bit of a loaded question for me because, as you said, Nick, I do have a history of running. I started running after I finished, really during grad school. I started running, and I had this phase where I ran and I competed at various distances, from 5K to marathon, and then I got into...
Did I see Boston Marathon 2:46? Do I have that right, or something like that?
Yeah, that was some time ago.
Right.
But it was fun, and then awesome. I got into cycling. I say it was a loaded question, though, to cut to the chase, is January of 24, I had surgery on my first MTP joint, so your big toe joint. I just had pretty severe arthritides. A guy in town named Matthew King fixed me up. And so, but prior to that, I had not run. I mean, my foot literally kept me from running.
Wow.
So I'd go to the gym and I could do some things like push a sled and things like that I was just doing for general strength and fitness at the time. But running was kind of off limits. The only time I really...
repetitivity of it.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I really stressed my foot was if I was playing ball with my two sons. And when I did that, I was struggling for 2-3 days thereafter. So I avoided it. So all that to say, I've got my foot fixed, and now I'm starting to kind of rebuild my running engine a little bit. It feels weird saying that a week out from the World Championship. Right. But I know next year I plan to be even stronger at running.
Yeah.
Going to the main thing too, as far as like how do I plan out runs? Saturdays for me are usually like the compromised running days. During the week, I'm either doing a tempo run or some sort of interval work, and then I'll sprinkle in a recovery run.
Yeah.
I
know it's always going to change, but like the interval work, what are the distances that you're usually doing on a lot of intervals? Again, I know it changes, but about on average.
I would say on average 800 to 1200.
Okay.
I do a little bit of 400, even some 200s, but I would say more often than not, it's more in that 800 to 1200 range.
So I mean, pretty similar to 0.6.
Yeah, and depending upon the number, depending upon the sort of the phase of training, it might be race pace. Yeah. It might be, in fact, sometimes earlier in the cycle, it might be slower than race pace. And then as you kind of get sort of closer and closer to peak, then of course those intervals take on the form of being faster than race pace. And then rest time between intervals varies, again, just kind of dependent upon where I am in the phase of training. So it's been fun running again, but running is not easy. It's for those that do run, I mean, you have to truly be strong, fit, stable on single leg, things like that in order to run. I think that, sometimes people think they're going to start running to get more fit. Yeah. And really the opposite attitude should be present. It should be, okay, I need to get strong and stable and fit before I'm really capable of running.
I like that.
Without getting hurt.
Yeah, no, I like that. I don't think I've really heard people say it like that before, but I think that's so true, and it hits home for me a little bit right now. I maybe should have done a little bit more things, but anyways, 2 more things real quick that I want to hit before we wrap up. The first is, you talked about how a lot of people come out of the gates, guns a-blazing, sprinting, but you're like, I kind of hang back a little bit. And I know that anytime you're competing side by side with somebody, if it's a marathon, half marathon, whatever competition it might be, we can tend to be influenced too much by the competition. And so how are you going to have the headspace and the confidence to not let the pace of the competition influence your strategy going in? Or how much should it potentially influence your strategy mid-race?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a lot that goes into it, like you said. I think in the very beginning of the race, coming off the gun, I know that I've got to sort of temper my effort and sort of run my race so that, again, heart rate doesn't get too high too quick, where you just end up kind of suffering the rest of the time.
Yeah.
But by the middle of the race, the attitude changes a little bit. Like I said, I think I have a pretty good idea of who these guys are that are definitely top contenders. So paying attention to where they are in relation to myself, and then obviously there comes a point where you just need to say, okay, I got to go for it, and kind of roll the dice a little bit, and just see how your body does.
For sure.
So yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, it's you have to feel it out while you're actually doing it, while you're actually executing it. It's you're gonna have to really figure out, like once you get towards the end, because that's kind of when it's like, if they should influence your effort, it's going to be towards the end, because you don't want to bunk out too early. But if it's like you're behind when it gets to the sandbag lunges, and you're going to have to bust your ass after that sandbag lunge for the run before the wall ball. So it's like you're just going to have to feel out when you're going to have to make up time versus no, it's not time to make up time yet.
Yep, exactly. Maybe I find myself sort of back a little bit, right, after the sled pull. I know there's still quite a bit of race to go, so I don't necessarily have to try to make it up all at once. But obviously, as you get closer and closer, as you said, whether it's the lunge or the carry or the final run, there comes a point where you just gotta go. Yeah. That's the competitive nature. That's where you're either gonna go and fiercely compete, or sometimes of course we all kind of talk to ourselves, and you got all these things going through your mind, right? But if you can just, again, just keep that sort of fighting spirit, I think a lot of times that'll help you get through it too.
Yeah. Something else just came up real quick is, we talked about before how you felt like the sled pull was one of the weaker areas for you that you really wanted to improve. I feel like in life you hear a lot of people kind of almost give various pieces of advice, from you should focus on your strengths, and the weaknesses, like, don't worry about it. Or like there's times when like you need to identify what you're weak at and up your game there. And it's, to an extent, which advice you take is a little bit case by case, or how you're applying it situation by situation. But how have you kind of thought about kind of like that idea of what I'm strongest at? Should I improve that, or should I identify what I'm weakest at and improve that? How have you kind of thought about that in your training?
Yeah, you're right. I think it is case by case. In my case, specific to training and for Hyrox, my attitude is really, how can I be better every day? Yeah. I mean, the best you, right? Yeah. You want to become the best you, but you want to become a little bit better version of you each and every day. And that's applicable to training in a sense of, I'm always, you identify your weaknesses. First of all, it's being humble enough to say, okay, this is a weak area for me. And then just having the courage and the strength to go after those things. I mean, you see it all the time. I mean, I see it a lot in everybody, but specifically like our young people today. It's like they don't know how to not be good at something. Yeah. And I think that's a much bigger topic. Maybe we can do another podcast. Yeah, that might be a good, but I think it's something that maybe it comes back to just being someone who likes to compete, whether it be in a competition or just compete, and finding it within. I think there's a matter of pride too, that, yeah, totally. It's not so much for the outside accolades so much as I think real champions find that drive within, and they want to just be the best versions of themselves. And in order to be the best version of oneself, you need to identify, okay, where can I improve? And then, as I said, just having the courage to attack those weaknesses and improve them. And it's not going to happen right away. So being patient with yourself, but just going into it with a sense of deliberateness, like deliberately practicing, so like with my sled pull, as you mentioned, yes, I practice the actual movement, but then I'm also doing other lifts and things like that to help. So I hope that makes sense.
No, totally. And honestly, I feel like one of the things that you said was made something very revealing to me, in the sense that you're like, ultimately, I want to become a better version of myself every single day. I want to become the best version of myself. And when it comes to the application of that right now, I want to be the best version of myself competing in this Hyrox World Championship. And I know that if I am this weak in the sled pull, I am not going to be that best version of myself. So if the weakness is holding you back from attaining the ultimate goal, then you have to address it. There are times in life when we're weak in a particular area, but we might just be able to outsource that weakness, and it's not going to hold us back from becoming the best version of ourselves. And so you have to identify whether the weakness is going to hold you back from getting the outcome of the best version of yourself or not. And then you can dictate, like, how much time, energy, and attention do I allocate to this weakness?
Right. Perfectly stated.
The last thing I want to ask you real quick, I think this is going to be relatable for everybody. Like you said, you're 52, you work full time. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I've got 2 sons that are 20. He'll be 21 in a month. Okay. And 17, and then I've got 2 stepdaughters that are 20 and 18. Okay,
great. So you 4 kids. How have you been able to? Most people have used the excuse of I don't have enough time, and time is obviously a finite resource that we don't have. But you have continued to keep up your training for decades. Just give us high level some things that you feel like have allowed you to continually allocate the necessary time to training and nutrition, etc., to not hold you back from getting better amidst having a family life.
Yeah. Lots of things come to mind. The first being just prioritization. Training is a priority for me for many reasons that we've discussed together here today. For example, I get questions doing what I do for a living, sports, sort of physio, chiropractic stuff. I work with golfers and different people, and I often get asked the question, do you golf? And as much as the game appeals to me, like on a mental level, I've just never gotten to a point in my life trying to balance everything where I want to give that kind of time. It's not an excuse. I would just much rather train than go, spend time on the course, a golf course. That's just one example. But so that the prioritization is one way. I would say another way is I'm very routine regimented. Those that know me well are probably laughing their butts off if they hear this, because it's a very obvious one if you spent some time around me. Not OCD type stuff. It's more just this is something for me that started in college again. The coach I played for in college was very time management. He stressed it, taught it well, and it's something I've carried with me, through life ever since then. So just figuring out how I can maximize the time that we do have every day. Like you said, it's finite. And then also just, again, I go back to family, specifically my wife, Amy. Very, very supportive, big fan, carries a lot of the responsibilities around the house that allows me to do what I want to do as far as training. So,
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, prioritization, being able to say no to things that might be good, but it's like, no, I know that training and health is a priority for me, so I'm willing to say no.
You're right.
To some other things.
Yeah, which is difficult.
Yeah, totally.
More difficult at other times than others, but people talk about that all the time. Learning to say no. Yeah. It's been written about. It's been talked about. it is harder to do than, to say sometimes, but
I think it takes just having conviction behind your priority,
Yeah.
conviction behind the thing that you value.
that's right.
Because if you have enough conviction around it, then when you potentially entertain, should I go golf, it's a pretty easy comeback to like, no, it's going to take too much time away from this.
Yeah.
Well, this is great, dude. I've loved this conversation. Like I told you before, we could have a lot of different types of conversations here today, but I appreciate you allowing me to pick your brain with regards to the fitness and nutrition and training Hyrox and everything. And dude, like you said, go in there and compete your ass off to win.
Yeah.
But like you also said, have fun and enjoy the moment. And if you enjoy it as much as you can, then you will perform your best.
Yeah.
And whether that looks like first or 12th, it'll be what it'll be.
Yeah.
But you've put in the work, and so just trust all the things that you've done up to this point and go out there and compete your ass off.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me today.
Of course, man. It's been a blast. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with a friend or family member. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, app, or on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. Also, if you're here in Nashville, Resilient Health and Performance is Dr. Josh Renkens' place. If you ever need any kind of physio help, chiropractic help, like he is your guy. He's been doing it for 3 decades now, and he is the person that I go to. He's the person I would recommend other people go to. So Resilient Health and Performance here in Nashville. Other than that, Josh, good luck next weekend. Appreciate the time, man. That's all we got.
Thank you.